Thanks so much for everyone for being here and all the great speakers. That is going to be a tough one to follow, but hopefully I do the team justice. So really excited to be here today talking about something I'm super passionate about, the world of AI and helping it actually create value both inside green security, but your health systems as well. Before we get started, a little bit about me. If I look constantly disheveled, it's because I have a 9-month son named Oliver that we're very excited to welcome into the world. Before joining green security earlier this year, I spent time at both Atania and Handle. I think actually a lot of familiar faces on this call from my time at Atania, which is the largest equipment planning platform utilized by hospital systems and third-party equipment planning firms across the US. So I managed all of the catalog and data operations and kind of aggregation of best practices from hospital build-out perspective. And then at Handle, I was doing agentic sourcing, multi-year capital planning, and working with supply chain and finance teams in hospitals across the US as well. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about why AI suddenly feels like it's everywhere, from every LinkedIn post you see to every booth at a conference now has AI at the end of their organization name, and then where you'll start to feel its impact at green security if you haven't already. I know we wouldn't be able to continue the presentation without me showing what Oliver looked like, so now that that's out of the way, that's my amazing son, Oliver. Quick question, obviously, I don't think everyone will be able to pop off mute, but quick thought is just how many of you are utilizing AI in your day-to-day work life, right? So if we think about the day-to-day life of our work, not just SaaS solutions that we're using, but how many of us feel like we're moving forward or we're very advanced in the space? I think it's pretty easy to feel like we're behind, even if we're using it every day. We see interesting posts and interesting utilizations that everyone's sharing of how they're using it. But really, if we think about the grand spectrum of being used, 84% of people in America still haven't used AI at any level, not just they're a free chatbot user, which we're seeing 16% of people have used. We're seeing less than 1% of people pay $20 plus a month to use a chatbot. And then, even smaller than 0.1% of people are using it from a coding or development perspective as green security is. So even if you're using it to do really basic work inside your health system, or any other perspective, you're still more advanced than a large chunk of the world. And I think it's important to understand where we are from a utilization perspective versus the true adoption in the world. We're still on the early curve of people understanding what these tools can do, where we're seeing gaps in what they say they can do, and then the best use cases for everything, right? So if you're one of the daily users, I do want you to just take a second and applaud yourself for, even though it might feel like everyone's using it, not everyone's really using it. So really quickly segueing from that, why does it feel like AI's everywhere suddenly, right? Like I said before, you can't go to a conference without seeing it in almost every booth. You can't open LinkedIn, or I'm sure you guys get way more than me in these, but you can't get a prospecting email with someone talking about how their AI is going to save you X dollars or X time, right? And the shift isn't really from as much from a technical capability as it is from an access perspective, right? Back in the day, AI was primarily used by highly technical individuals to run very specific workflows or solve very specific challenges. And about, I think it was 2022, we started seeing more of a shift where there were consumer-facing AI platforms, not consumer-facing in a way where Redbox back in the day knew what DVD you wanted to get mailed to you next, but in a way that we had chatbots that could actually answer questions for us and do things and connect to our tools. Now everyone can feel AI if they're using it in a daily fashion, not dissimilar to a few years ago where we saw blockchain on every single booth at every conference and posting about it. The main difference is you couldn't use it in your daily life in most cases, unless you were a crypto enthusiast. So really quickly, what do we mean when we say AI? It's heavily confusing and convoluted, right? If we really think about it. But in most cases, it could mean one of a few things. It could mean prediction. So I think this is going to happen, or a recommendation, which is I think you should do this, right? These are two levels that we're starting to integrate into the green security platform more and more, where we're seeing, hey, these vendors have frequent compliance issues. We think this should happen. Or this is an automated lockout policy that we think should be created based on these habits from these vendors, right? Classification and automation. So classifying or categorizing data, we're seeing more and more requests from customers to make sure that our vendor naming nomenclature maps up to your internal systems, right? Mapping spend files to vendor data inside Green Security. Then automation. We're doing a ton of work tied to vendor follow-ups, vendor engagement, reporting, etc. And then the last two, generation retrieval. So creating new things. Everyone on this call has probably created an image or something along those lines, an email tied to AI touching your data, and then retrieval. So for pulling things across large data sets. I think it's important just to contextualize. There are a few other ways people could be thinking about it, but it could mean a lot of things to a lot of people based on the conversation you're in. So how is that showing up for you in Green Security? I gave a couple examples on the last slide, but I wanted to just deep dive on a few areas because we only have a 15-minute session here really quick. But product development, Anton showed some amazing dashboards and other things earlier that we have started to roll out that have been, expedited significantly because of our leverage of AI-enabled development work, right? Not the world of vibe coding we're hearing negativity, but the world where our trusted engineers that are very capable and very skilled are now able to 10x their productivity because they have a tool to support them in their work, right? Also, if you hop into the supplier resilience room after this, I'll show you one of the other agentically built tools that we have tied to resilience and tracking vendor information. Customer intelligence. You guys have a plethora of data flowing through our system. And for humans, sometimes, I'm sure you feel this, it's hard to digest all that. Who's coming in? Who's coming out? Where do we see problems from a vendor or a check-in perspective, right? Where can we optimize? So being able for us to contextualize our calls and customer goals, et cetera, to actually drive value for our customers outside of just a standard report is something that we've invested a lot of time in this year. Security and compliance. It is the Trust Summit. Security is in our name. It's really important that we're on top of not only what are best practices from a market perspective in terms of making sure our organization is remaining safe from both a data compliance perspective, but what are we doing for our hospital systems from a best practice perspective in terms of what are vendor policies or compliance policies, et cetera. Agentic workflows, these are going to come out more and more through the year, but tying in different ways, both internally for our users and externally for customers, different workflows. So QBR scheduling. Right now, we've done a few things internally with vendor follow-ups and announcement emails that few people on the call, I think, are already seeing value, especially all of our early implementation customers are now seeing an agentic approach to launching our implementation campaigns with vendors that we're getting auto emails and engagement with suppliers. That's actually translating into very successful implementations and vendor engagement, which is exciting. Support enhancement, which I'll dive into a little bit more. We have only 5 minutes, so I picked one to dive into, and then decision support. So touching all the different verticals of that data we're going to get from you, but also tying into more data sets that we might get. Again, spend files, contract information. Something that's been really exciting since we joined in Green Security is more and more talking about service vendors. So being able to map, if we think about our gateways and tying it back to Anton's presentation earlier, our gateways and smart badges mapping to hours allocated on a service contract, it's really exciting to be able to track someone from your third-party service provider, whether it's an OEM or a true third-party service provider like a Crothall or TriMedics. How long did they stay on site? How many hours were logged in the CMMS tied to a work order, and what's remaining on the contract, right? So really exciting to think about how AI is tying all of these things together, and we're able to do it really without expanding our team a whole lot other than changing the way we think about solving these problems. Really quickly, I wanted to deep dive into how we're thinking about enriching some of our support functions through AI. This has been a big topic on a few of our QBRs lately. So I thought it'd be really exciting to share some of the work we're doing tied to omni-channel automation. So helping our supplier, our vendor community get resolutions a little bit sooner from our team tied to things like password resets. We're going to be rolling out some smart AI systems where people can call in, receive auto responses, and drive down that time that they're seeing to resolution right now, and also reduce any burden that you might be facing from suppliers from an engagement perspective. We're very excited about rolling this out, and we don't take these type of initiatives lightly, right? I think it was really important to show you guys not only are we thinking about rolling out these automation tools, but we're thinking about how we triage these things. So, of course, our 24/7 support team is always going to be available for our members, but we wanted to make sure that for the things that were automatable, we're thinking about monitoring sentiment. So, is the vendor up in an emergency? Are they on site and they need to get through right now and they need to answer, etc.? That's something that we can expedite rapidly to our team to handle versus some of these other things we can manage through our system. So I think it's really important to show our community that we're not automating for the sake of automating. We're not taking the fast route like you're seeing from a lot of vendors in the space of just embedding generative AI to embed it and say we're AI. We're building out full workflows that take into account real human emotions, impacts on your health system, and of course, all the sensitive data and customer specific use cases that roll into this very, very complex world of vendor operations that we're trying to streamline a little bit. Lindsay, I wanted to wrap up on time, so that was my core focus of the day. But super excited to be meeting with more and more of you with our CSM team. Again, I'll be in the supplier resiliency room, so we can certainly chat about the resilience tool and how we're tracking vendor ops data for all of your core vendors. But also, if you're using AI or want to deep dive on anything that might provide value or you're struggling with right now, I'll be around the whole rest of the day.